Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And this week, for me, it's going to be a bit of a haunting one, or at least one would hope, as much as hotels can be haunted, because, you know, I'm all about them haunted hotels this week.
Apparently. We know that now.
I don't think I've ever actually stayed in a haunted hotel. And if I have, I've never experienced anything creepy or terrifying in them. When I was younger, I've definitely stayed in creepy motels for family vacations. Yeah, like I'm sure you've stayed in a motel before where it's like,
oh yeah, when I did cross-country road trip from Chicago to San Francisco, and once I landed in San Francisco, I should say arrived, all Motel 6s the entire time. So, and in certain areas, they were just worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, so that part for me was definitely creepy, but I've never experienced like waking up and seeing like a ghost. Yeah. I've had nightmares in my own home where it's like I'm dreaming that I'm in a hotel and I see something creepy, but and
I'm pretty sure I made the promise that at 250 patrons we go stay in that underground Grand Canyon hotel or whatever. So
no,
don't forget, folks.
I would rather
patreon.com/scaryish-podcast.
I'd rather stay at the Stanley Hotel.
That's 100. No, is it 100? 150? It's 150 patron 150. Goal. We'll go to the Stanley Hotel for sure.
But I want to go to the Stanley Hotel one day. I think it's a gorgeous hotel. And maybe there's nothing haunted about it. Who knows?
What if we went and stayed in the hotel that's underground, and then the nuclear war started, and like when it was the time to leave, everyone's like, "Hey, can't go up to the surface.
You guys can't
irradiated
see.
Wasteland." And we're like, "Oh shit!" And it's like Fallout. It's like Fallout, Arizona. I don't know what it would be called.
Y'all
Fallout Grand
have no
Canyon.
idea how just annoyed my face was. Like. Stupid nuclear fallout. Okay.
Anyways, Adam, what is he going to be covering this week? I'm going to be covering a little topic that I think I'm going to call time skips, because we've covered a few of them in the past as they related to specific topics, but I wanted to pick stuff that didn't have enough to be a single topic and combine them into a few stories to be called time skips. We're going to go with that. So that's what I'm going to be covering this week.
All
so
right.
Have you ever time skipped, Robin?
Yeah, I close my eyes and then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, fuck.
Or you wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy?
I feel like crap because I feel like I didn't sleep at all.
So you're feeling like P. Shitty then?
Yeah, I definitely feel like P. Shitty. Okay.
I definitely have had a time skip in the last like 7 days where I just closed my eyes and then all of a sudden it was like morning and I was like, no, like how is this happening? But I think I'm going first this week if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. I mean, I did say it multiple times before we got ready to go, so we'll let you finish.
I was totally about to just blow into my topic.
I know you were. I saw your lips quivering to get into it, but this week I wanted to cover something time travel-y. Like I had that urge. I was shown a conspiracy theory on TikTok by friend of the show, Ralph, that seems legit, but it requires a level of research that I am currently not capable of. I told Ralph, like, maybe once we get the TV show and we have like a budget and I can travel and interview people, like that's something that I would research. Because conspiracy theories, they run deep. Like I'm not going to do anything like super sketchy that might piss people off unless I can really dig into it. And I think I should just put that up front because I did Hollow Earth and didn't really get a lot of hate mail, which is nice, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be dipping my toe in the conspiracy theory pool much more than that. But for this episode, there's some stuff we've covered in the past from time to time that I think about, like the transported soldier, the guy who like was in the Philippines and then like blinked and all of a sudden he was in Spain and the governments had to negotiate how to get him back and no one knew how he got there. And it was just bizarre and it's something that actually happened. Or like the people who saw like Marie Antoinette and different other folks at the Palace of Versailles that Robin covered. Like just things that are really weird. And I wanted to find some stuff like that. So I'm going to cover a few things here. And I have named the topic. It still says on my script, insert topic name here. Maybe I'll just call it that. Maybe when you guys see the episode pop up, it's like, insert topic name here and haunted hotels.
That'd get so confusing.
It'd be funny, though. I guarantee you so many people reach out like, you forgot to put the topic name in without listening to the episode first to see that it was a joke. So I probably won't do that. But anyways, to do this topic, I had to dig into some stories that have been told and retold over the years. There is no way to document the authenticity of the things I'm about to tell you, like the transported man, something that has been documented from those governments for a long time. As we all know, time travel, though, is like a 100% confirmed thing. Totally real. Obviously, I'm kidding. This is my nice way of saying this could all be bullshit. So take it all with a grain of salt. But some things have happened in the past that just seem so bizarre. It's almost like people have skipped forward or backwards in time. One of the examples I want to give you is what happened to a police officer in 1996 in Liverpool. So he and his wife were shopping in the town when his wife decided she was going to stop by a bookstore. And he told her, cool, I'm going to go down the street to that CD store really fast and I'll come back and meet you. Now, for those of you younglings that are listening, a CD is something that's like a Frisbee if it had a baby with YouTube and it only had a single album on it.
What?
Because I don't know how to describe CDs otherwise. They look like
it's like
Blu-rays.
a DVD, but no
They look
video.
like Blu-rays. Yeah, exactly like Blu-rays, but it could hold way less. It only held one album. That's what a CD was. It stood for compact disc. Anyways, as he's walking away from the bookstore, going to the CD store, he noticed that everything got eerily quiet. And he just sort of like looked around like what's happening. And then the silence is broken by the sound of a vehicle that was coming way too close to him. So he just jumped out of the way instinctively, and he saw a van pass by him honking at him. And he had been in the middle of the road. He thought he was on the sidewalk, but he was actually in the middle of the road, which was eerie to him. The other thing was that the van was older. It looked like it was in new condition, but it was definitely an older van, like a 1950s style van. So he thought, that's odd. And he looked around, kind of shaken about the fact he almost got hit by a car. And he noticed that the buildings looked different too, and the people all appeared to be dressed as if they were in the 1950s. So he was a little freaked out. And he did what any scared married man does in a situation like that. They go to find their wife, whether it's to like protect them or because they're scared and they're like, someone help me. But he ran back to the bookstore, and when he got back there, the location wasn't a bookstore. It was a woman's clothing store named Cripps. This is what he states. Apparently, there was a woman's clothing store in that location named Cripps back in like 1950 to like 57. He was baffled and confused. He didn't know that at the time. He just knew that the spot his wife had just walked into that was a bookstore moments ago was suddenly a woman's clothing store. He could see through the windows women's clothing and mannequins, and he decided to go into the clothing store, see if his wife was inside. Maybe he just wasn't paying enough attention or whatever. When he steps through the doors, though, it's a bookstore again. There's no mannequins or women's clothing. He looks around and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And he goes back outside and everyone's dressed in like the track pants and overalls and slap bracelets and acid wash jeans of the 1990s again. So okay. He's not sure what happened. His wife didn't notice anything change like he did and was very worried about his mental state when he told her the story. I happen to wonder if he took some drugs or something like that, or if something bizarre like a time skip actually happened to this guy, because he talked about it and the story got around, and it's something that you can find online. And he still states to this day that absolutely happened to him, and he does not know how he got back into the 1950s.
Would you call it a time skip or a time slip?
Either one works, I guess. All I know is it's not a time freeze.
I was going to do it like a time warp reference.
Wow. I went with Dragon Ball Z Goldo, who only lasts for like 6 episodes. But I think everyone my age remembers him because Funimation didn't get the rights to go past the Ginyu Force saga for a really long time. So you had to keep fucking watching up until Goku landed to fight them. Anyways, we're going to keep going. Speaking of the 1950s, something notorious happened in Tokyo in 1954. Arriving at the Haneda airport was a man traveling from Europe. When he was going through customs, he ran into a problem getting into Japan, which no one wants to happen. You don't want to travel internationally and get stuck in customs. It's like every traveler's worst nightmare. He was just this ordinary-looking Caucasian businessman-style dude, and his primary language was French. When he was interacting with the customs agent, he stated he was from Taured, Taured, a country that was located between France and Spain. And he had a passport from Taured as well, with stamps, like visa stamps from traveling previously to other countries. And they were like very confused because there was one major problem. A country named Taured didn't then and has never existed. So the agent he was talking to got his peers and his supervisors involved because although the man was cooperative, he was very distraught at what was happening. He didn't understand why he was being stopped, and he sincerely didn't understand why they had not heard of his country. And eventually they got a map and they showed the dude like the border between France and Spain. And they asked him if the country he was from was Andorra, Andorra, which is a country that still exists in the exact location he was describing. And the man was genuinely upset when he saw this. When they showed him the map and they showed him the country, the location was correct, but the name wasn't. And he insisted Torrid was a country that existed for over 1,000 years. Now, Andorra has existed since 1278, not quite 1,000 years, so it has a little bit of a different history. They told him they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know where he was from. Because of that, they couldn't let him into the country, but they were going to do everything they could to get him taken care of. But they needed to make some phone calls. They needed to contact some people. So he insisted Torrid existed and that he would cooperate until they figured out their shit. So they arranged a hotel for him, but they had armed guards take him there. And when he stayed in his room, they had 2 guards posted outside of his room the entire time to ensure that he wouldn't just leave and go into Japan. So they made some calls to Andorra and other people within the country of Japan to find out, had anyone heard of this country? Had anyone heard of this guy? Like, did he get on the flight that he had flown in on? Basically, what the fuck was happening? And then the next morning, the guards were told, hey, bring him back to the airport. And when they went into the room, he and all of his possessions had completely disappeared. There was no sign of where he had gone. The only way in and out of that hotel room was the door that they were guarding the entire time, which makes me think the guards fucked off, or just got lazy or got paid off and he snuck out. The thing that's super creepy about this, the most bizarre thing, is that when they told him, go stay in the hotel, they kept his passport at the airport. They're like, we need to keep this because we need to figure out what the hell is going on. So when the guards called and they're like, hey, he's not here, the airport guys are like, well, let's check his passport. And it was gone. They had it under lock and key and the passport had mysteriously vanished. And they had CCTVs in the airport and there was nothing that showed that anyone had taken this thing. They have no idea how it disappeared. It could also be a
cover-up.
Yeah, absolutely. It could just be something where it was a secret agent. He got caught. They called someone's government. They're like, oh, yeah, we don't know who that is. And then they called him get the fuck out of there right now. Use your nerve agent or whatever. But he disappeared. Nerve agent. And people to this day still talk about this as one of the more bizarre occurrences of someone stating they're from some place that doesn't exist.
There is a Kevin Spacey movie about this.
K-Pax?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
We've talked about K-Pax on the show before, and I've explained to you the plot of K-Pax before. So he is a guy who's in a mental institution for stating that he's an alien, not that he's from a different country.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's an alien.
Very, very different premises.
But he has money from the future.
No, I don't think he does.
Is that a different movie?
I think you're talking about 12 Monkeys now with Bruce Willis.
What? Oh, Jesus.
He travels back in time to stop a virus that destroys the world from happening, and then he realizes that he, as a kid, saw the virus start, and then at the very end, sorry, I'm going to spoil 12 Monkeys for you people, at the very end of the movie, he tries to stop the guy who's going to spread the virus, and he gets killed trying to stop him, and he realizes that the man he thought had spread the virus the entire time, his entire life, was actually himself who he watched die as a child. He watched himself die, and it's just this weird brain fuck. And of course, basically what it says is he's the reason that it wound up happening in the first place. Anyways, I haven't watched 12 Monkeys in a while. That could be completely different than what it's actually about.
I swear there was a movie and it's some guy from the future and he has money from the future, from our U.S. Treasury from the future. It's just
is it Back to the Future Part 2? Does he have an almanac?
Is it? I don't know. The money, it's the cash that he has. It's the serial numbers have not been printed yet.
I don't know.
And it has the signature of the guy who just took over for the Treasury.
See, that's not K-Pax. That's all I can tell you. I don't know what movie you're referring to because I'm sure that is an actual movie. But yeah, it's not K-Pax with Kevin Spacey. So it might be another Kevin Spacey movie. He has a fuck ton of movies. So someone's listening to this and they're like, Adam, 1, that's not the premise of 12 Monkeys, and 2, I have no idea what the fuck I was talking about. So, all right. The last story I'm going to tell you about happened to 2 people, not just one. This one is kind of bizarre. This one's fairly well documented, but again, they could just be full of shit. This one took place in 1932, long before lying was invented, so they have to be telling the truth. A newspaper reporter by the name of J. Bernard Hutton and a photographer named Joachim Brandt were sent to do a story that required them to travel. Their destination...
Is it Joachim or Joaquin?
I say Joachim because it's Joachim. Joaquin
I'm
is
pretty
spelled
sure that's
differently.
Joaquin.
Joachim. Anyways, their destination they were traveling to was Hamburg, Germany, also known as the birthplace of course, Ronald McDonald, the killer clown and primordial evil being that inspired Pennywise in Stephen King's autobiography, It. There's a lot wrong with that sentence, obviously, but for cereal, they were going to Hamburg, Germany. Robin's just like leaning back like she's done with my shit for this episode already, so hopefully you folks are enjoying it. Anyways, there's a shipyard at Hamburg, Germany, or there was in 1932 that they were covering. They got there, they checked out the ships, they interviewed workers and some of the higher-up executives that run the place, and they wrapped up what they were supposed to do by late afternoon. They're like, okay, all in a day's work, let's head home. As they were packing up to leave, they heard a sound. It sounded like...
Children giggling. Oh, okay. Got it.
So they looked up and saw that the unmistakable sound of approaching aircraft that I just 100% fucking nailed, obviously, had indeed heralded the arrival of a sky full of warplanes. And as soon as they noticed this, an anti-aircraft battery nearby them and then all over the city of Hamburg and at the shipyard started firing into the sky at these approaching planes. So they were freaked the fuck out. They realized like, oh shit, this is real. And they started to run for cover. As they started to run for cover, bombs began dropping and colliding with the ground and exploding the buildings around them.
What?
In particular, one of the first targets that was targeted, yeah, that's what happens, targets get targeted, were fuel tanks that held the precious lifeblood for the ships at the shipyard. When they were hit, obviously, you know, it's an explosive hitting a giant fuel tank, caused massive explosions that set giant parts of the shipyard on fire. The warehouses around the place were collapsing from the impact of these falling bombs, and the cranes that were at the docks were basically falling like a house of cards, like just tumbling over.
Another Kevin Spacey like reference.
Yeah, he just keeps popping back up. So these two men realized that there was no shelter they're going to be safe in because everything's getting bombed. So they turned around and they ran back to their vehicles so they could just nope the fuck out while the battle was occurring. And this whole time, Joachim, the photographer, was photographing the shit out of what was happening to them. Because it's like, you're going to die. Like, just take some pictures of what's going on. So, you know, at some point, maybe someone can use them. Like the guy on Mount St. Helens who took like the video of the mountain basically collapsing, who 100% died like moments later.
Did he really?
Oh yeah, like that like famous footage of like seeing like the mountain just like slough off the side.
Yeah.
And then like the clouds start coming. Like they recovered that after the fact because that dude died taking it. So.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, like 100%. I think I've covered Mount St. Helens and told you this before, but I don't know anymore, man. Anyways, so the late day that they were in had just disappeared because the sky had gone dark from all the aircraft overhead and the smoke from the explosions and the fires. As they reached the car, they noticed that the anti-aircraft batteries were starting to make contact and destroy some of the bombers overhead, meaning that those aircraft above them were soon going to become ground craft.
Okay.
Because they're no longer in the air. Get it?
Yeah, I got it.
So
got it.
They got in their car. They, took off. They drove to the gate of the shipyard, and they asked the guard there if there's anything they could do. And the guard basically told them, like, no, just get the fuck out of here. And they took off as fast as their vehicle in 1932 could carry them, which I'm pretty sure was as fast as their feet could pedal, like in the Flintstones. So when they got into Hamburg, when they got into the city proper outside of the shipyard, they noticed the sky wasn't dark anymore, and they initially assumed that they had gotten away from the battle, but noticed that there were no damaged buildings in the city or fires or impact craters. They also noticed that the citizens of Hamburg were just out and about like nothing was happening. So they stopped the car and got out to warn people about the attack that they were oblivious to. And when they looked back so they could point and basically say, like, get to shelter, you blind assholes, they noticed the shipyard, which was completely untouched. There was no firing batteries. There was no bombers in the sky. There was no burning buildings or blown up fuel tanks. There was no smoke filling the sky anymore. And they were frightened, and they were very baffled at the battle that had just disappeared that they had been in the middle of. And they got in the car.
But they talked to someone.
I know. They got in the car, and they noped the fuck out even harder this time. They're like, we don't know what just happened. This is really scary. Let's just leave. And they drive back to their newspaper's headquarters, and they told their editor. And they told their editor, here's what happened to us. And then it just disappeared. And then Joachim was like, let's develop these pictures and see what happened. So they go into the red room, the room for developing, not for the sex dungeon stuff.
Thank you.
Are shocked when the photos are developed because they just show the shipyard looking completely normal, like nothing had happened, like no battle raging around them, except that they were taken while on the run, like this guy was panicking like he was in the middle of the battle. So the editor here gets thoroughly confused, basically decides they made the whole thing up. They must have gotten drunk before they came back and got spooked at some noises at the shipyard or something like that, and decided to have this like massive story about a battle that took place that just vanished when they realized that there was like no evidence of it. So over the next few years, the writer, Bernard, he moves to London. He just decides like he's going to relocate. Then this little thing called World War II happened. And the bombings of like, most of England, including London, that the Nazis did was eerily familiar to him during that time. Until 1943, when it moved from, eerily similar to frightening. In 1943, the Nazis were on the defensive at this point, and he read this article in the newspaper about the British Royal Air Force and how they had bombed a critical shipyard of the Nazis that was located at Hamburg. God. And the article was filled with photos of the destruction of the shipyard, as well as how the attack had been carried out, and it had been carried out exactly the way it was when he had seen the vision of it in 1932, 11 years earlier. That's creepy. Yeah, and like they swore up and down that entire time that they had been in the middle of a battle, and everyone basically told them like, you guys are full of shit. And like we've talked about stuff before where something is like so traumatic, like it leaves a resonance on a place, like regardless of whether or not something is going to happen in the future, something that happened in the past. Like the bombing of a shipyard in the middle of World War II is about as terrifying and as like intense as something could possibly be. And can you imagine if you time slipped somewhere and you died? Like, no one would fucking know. Like, if they died in the bombings, they'd just be like, oh, like 2 citizens wandered in here, but no one would know. So,
I'm just sad about their camera. Like, the fact that they took pictures of nothing.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about when I read this one is, like, there are so many disappearances all over the world that, like, go completely unexplained. People never know what happened. What if someone time slipped and didn't slip back? Time slipped and died, because there's also bodies that are never able to be identified where people are just like, we don't know who the fuck they are. Like, what happened if someone time slipped and died somewhere and then all of a sudden they're just stuck there forever? Like, their body's just stuck.
It's like that episode of Doctor Who, Blink, where her friend gets kidnapped or, transferred into the past, and she sends her a letter from the past, because she got spirited away by the weeping angels.
Trying to remember Blink, but I don't think I'm remembering it correctly. Isn't that the one where at the end they like trick the angels to look at each other?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that one. I don't remember that part. I remember like them watching the videotapes of the doctor recording things so they can like have a conversation with like a pre-recorded message.
At the beginning, they're going to that house at the beginning.
Okay.
And they're walking through the house, and her friend gets touched by a weeping angel and gets sent to the past, and she gets married and has kids and all that stuff.
I'll have to rewatch Blink because that's a really good episode.
It's such a good episode.
When it comes to these guys' story, though, it reminds me of something that happened to me, which is like a much lower scale thing, but it could be one of those situations where you like accidentally make up a lie that turns out to be true. You know what I mean? Like, I may have told this on the show before, but when I was a kid, this game came out that was really controversial called Mortal Kombat. I think everyone basically has heard of it nowadays, which meant that you make a game controversial to a bunch of kids, all they want to do is play that specific game. And I remember when they started developing Mortal Kombat 2, all the kids were like, it's going to be the greatest game ever made. And there was one day where I had this friend that was hanging out at my house, and we were playing Mortal Kombat with my brother. And for whatever reason, I just decided to tell him, like, I heard there's going to be this lizard character in Mortal Kombat 2. Mind you, I had no clue at that time, was totally making shit up that Reptile was a character in Mortal Kombat. Like, Reptile's a secret character in Mortal Kombat. And then knowing in my brain, like knowing in my head, like, why'd you just say that? Like, you're totally full of shit. My mouth, for some reason, went on to say, like, yeah, his fatality is his tongue shoots out of his mouth and then pulls out your heart. Like, completely just doubling down with this bullshit lie. And my friend's like, no way, like, that's awesome. And, like, I was just sitting there thinking, like, why did I say that? I'm totally full of shit. Like, when the game comes out, what am I going to say? Like, oh, they must have removed that character or something. So I think what happened is I must have heard of Reptile, like, through the inner workings of, like, kids talking about secret characters in the game.
Yeah.
And, like, he was a hidden character in Mortal Kombat 1. You had to do a bunch of shit to get to him, but he didn't have that fatality yet. Then Mortal Kombat 2 comes out. Reptile's a playable character, and everyone has 2 fatalities. His fatality number 1 is he takes his mask off, he shoots his tongue out, it sticks to your face, and it rips off your head, and he eats it. So it's almost like exactly how I described it. And that's not a fatality from Mortal Kombat 1 from what I can recall. So when that happened, I was just like, holy shit, I made something up and it came true. No fucking way. So maybe the Hamburg battle was something similar to that. Probably not. Basically what I'm saying is I am a prophet. And I'll let you guys know what else I come up with. So
you do have a very religious name.
Yeah, I do. Adam Matthew is a pretty religious name. So, but anyways, that, my spooky friends, is time slips, or what would you call it? Time
slips.
I said something different than at the beginning of the episode.
You said time skips. It makes more sense to be time slips.
Time slippy skips. I hope you enjoyed it. So, all right.
Okay.
Before we move into Robin's topic, we are going to take a quick commercial break.
All right. So, welcome to my half of the episode. Even if I would hope to never come across a haunted hotel, there are quite a few that claim to be haunted as heck. There are so many websites out there that are like, this is the most haunted, like top 44. I saw one. I was like, 44? Why 44?
Isn't 4 a lucky number in some cultures?
Is it?
Oh no, 4 is a bad number
4
because
is death.
Okay, that's why. There you go.
Okay, I get it now. Some have these long, detailed backstories as to why their hotel is said to be haunted, and some are just haunted by word of mouth. Like, they just keep telling stories of this XYZ being haunted by whatever. But it's really up to you whether you want to believe each of these hotels is haunted. Again, I've never stayed in a haunted hotel, so I couldn't tell you. But the first hotel this episode is that of the Old Diplomat Hotel in the Philippines. So, this hotel, this structure, it was built back in 1913 and was originally constructed as a place for local friars and nuns of the Dominican order to live in. So they called it the Dominican Hill Retreat House. It was then used as a school for a couple years between like 1915 and 1918, but then they converted it back to the retreat house because they couldn't get enough students, which is really sad. During World War II, which is funny that you talked about World War II. So during World War II, the Japanese invaded the Philippines. And this building, being 2 floors and a totally accessible roof deck, this would-be hotel kind of became a strategic stronghold for the Japanese because it had wide sweeping views of the city and the area surrounding it. So it's kind of the perfect place to set up shop and keep an eye out for everything going on around you.
Right. Perfect HQ.
Yeah. So as a base camp during the war, it kind of became the location for lots of force, lots of war crimes.
Oh no.
And that included things like rape, torture, murder, and just all around massacre. Like, they went all up in here, killed all the nuns and priests that were living there. It was just a mess. No one was safe within the walls of this building. And as the war went on, the building sustained damage from bombs because the U.S. started coming in to try and, liberate the Philippines. And as they were gaining power and reclaiming power in this area, they were just nailing the crap out of this building. So it took a lot of damage. And legend has it, not really legend, I don't know if you would say legend, but historically, it's said that many of these Japanese soldiers that were in this base camp committed suicide within the building, which is a fact that I would totally believe would happen because it wasn't uncommon for those that were captured or were going to be captured to kill themselves.
What's the name of that?
So these soldiers would rather perform harakiri, which is like disemboweling yourself, than to suffer the shame of being made a prisoner. So it's like, do you want to die an honorable death or, the shame of being captured? And like, there's a reason why we still use or hear the term kamikaze today, kamikaze. And it's because these people were just willing to do whatever it took for their country and for their empire, right? So it's something that I would totally believe happened, that once Americans, the US started coming in, that they would all just be like, well, we're not going to hand ourselves over. We're just going to kill ourselves. Which definitely leaves a lot of bad energy on a location, at least to me.
I would say if a hotel told me like, oh yeah, a bunch of people committed suicide here during one of the world wars, I'd be like, this place is haunted as fuck. That's exactly where I'm going to
go. So after the war, the building fell into a state of disrepair, obviously. And as with many abandoned buildings, it just kind of went downhill. There was nobody to take care of it. And then, years pass. Then the 1970s, a con man named Tony Agpaoa, Agpaoa.
That sounds right.
He buys the building and converts it into a supposedly beautiful 33-bedroom hotel, where he cons a bunch of terminally ill people into believing that he had some sort of healing powers. He kind of became this type of cult leader, but not to the scale of like Jonestown type cult leader. But people came to him in hopes that he could somehow heal them. And he didn't heal them by any type of physical, like, knife cut surgery. He was supposedly like a psychic healer. So one of the sites that I read was like he performed psychic surgery.
Wow.
I was just like, this is a con man if I've ever heard of it. But a con can't last forever. So this guy dies
like
in
4 or 5 days at most, and that's like for the longer ones, like in LA.
Oh, are you talking about anime conventions?
I mean, I was talking about conventions, but yeah, that works too.
So this guy dies in 1987 of a heart attack. So the hotel eventually closes down and then falls into further disrepair after there's no one left to take care of it then. So this hotel, since, because this building's just abandoned and kind of falling apart, it's now considered to be one of the most haunted, or at least one of the most renowned places in the Philippines. And with it having gone through so much in so little time, it's bound to have some lingering haunts. There have been numerous reports of paranormal activity within the walls of the old Diplomat. Many of the spirits seem to be those that were tortured and killed. So a lot of the people that were living there before, got invaded and then murdered within the walls of the building. Ghosts seen are said to look like those of nuns and priests. Lots of reports of them having their heads missing or their faces missing.
The fuck?
Which is, man, I don't want to be a ghost with my head that's just gone. I mean, I know Nearly Headless Nick is like, man, I wish I weren't nearly headless, but like, damn.
I saw a meme that said, remember, every day when you wake up and you're putting on your outfit, if you die, that's your ghost outfit forever. And it made me want to dress better, for sure. Like 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? If I died in this outfit right now, I'd be so sad.
If I died in this outfit, I'd be okay with it because it's comfy and I have a Scaryish logo on this shirt, so I'd at least be advertising our podcast.
Scaryish shirt. That's like the first Scaryish shirt that somebody like made and sent to us.
Yeah, it's embroidered. It's super nice.
Tawny.
I wear
I'm pretty
it all
sure
the time.
Tawny is the one that made that.
I think you're right.
But I just have an oversized Donald Duck shirt on. I don't know how intimidating I'd be as a ghost. But
some podcast in 100 years will be talking about Donald Duck lady haunting someplace, and who knows where.
There are those that have reported seeing Japanese soldiers, which also is not something so out of the ordinary considering everything that's going on or that has gone on in this location. Some have heard the cries of children and babies, which is real depressing. Some say even victims of the con artist that was there before. So the people that he claimed that he could heal who died there are said to roam the halls of the old Diplomat Hotel. So people have seen apparitions, they've heard banging, crying, screaming. There have been so many of these just unexplainable experiences. Some people say like they heard these sounds and they're just so quick. It's like they hear a sound and then it's silence and you don't hear anything, which I think is creepy. Like imagine hearing the sounds of a party, right? You hear the sounds of a party and then all of a sudden it's silence. I would just be so creeped out.
Yeah.
Or, children giggling. That one gets me.
You always mention it, but that's the truth, man. Children giggling would be horrifying.
Yeah. You can actually go visit this building. You can actually take a cab there since it's under rehab now. So it's under rehabilitation by the national government as a heritage and nature park. And it's free to go to. You can totally take a cab, go there in the morning. It's free. But at night, it's locked up. So you can't really check out all the creepiness. So good luck with that if that's what you're into. You can probably take a tour. They do have like guided tours that take you in there and kind of show you around and tell you the history of the place. But a lot of the pictures that I've seen of it, I'm like, I am not one of those people who want to be found in there day or night. Like everything is so dilapidated and it just looks real creepy. And the fact that all those atrocities happened during World War II is just awful. Because think about it, what did they do with the bodies? Where are they? The people that died in there, they have to be buried somewhere nearby.
Yeah, it's creepy to think about. I actually didn't even consider that.
Yeah, so if all those people, were murdered, killed, tortured, they have to be buried somewhere nearby. And then the people that killed themselves there, like imagine that, I imagine the government just came in, dug a really deep ditch and threw them all in there.
Yeah, I was going to say a mass grave, probably.
So, I don't know. I mean, either that or they were kind enough to ship them back to their country, but I don't think so. But I don't know anything about how war works. I'm not sure if that's in, some convention, some like contract written somewhere that's like, you have to return our soldiers back. But who knows? That is the tale of the old Diplomat Hotel. So it's kind of creepy. That one definitely has like dark background to it. I was very surprised when I saw that. The second hotel I'm going to be telling you about is the Colonial Inn in Concord, Massachusetts. So this one's a little bit closer to home, more feasible to go visit,
Still
I think.
Pretty far, though. Massachusetts is like a 5-hour plane ride from here. But yeah, Japan's like, 11, 12 hours?
I mean, the other one was the Philippines. I've never been to the Philippines, so.
My brain is just locked into going back to Japan, so.
So apparently, Concord, Massachusetts itself is supposed to be like one of the most haunted towns in Massachusetts. I did not know this. I don't know a lot about history, so.
Every town claims they're one of the most haunted towns if it's based around their tourism.
So this hotel has a really long history. So I'm not surprised that it's supposedly haunted because it is very old. This inn was built in 1716 and was known as Monument Square at the time. In 1775, a very famous year, I'm sure a lot of people know 1775, but one of the buildings at this inn was used to store arms and food, not human arms like firearms. So it was used to store arms and food.
It's a good distinction to make because you just never know.
I mean, there's some sick people out there who are like, oh yeah, I have a shed for my arms. I just collect human arms. No big deal. So the British came to seize these supplies and they were met at the North Bridge, a half-mile from the inn by Minutemen. So they run into these Minutemen and a battle ensues. And this battle is supposedly known as the first of the American Revolution, apparently. So I'm going to say this right now. I know nothing. I know nothing about the Revolutionary War. I know nothing about
is this the Battle of Concord and Lexington? Is that
yes,
what this is?
You stupid nerd. Okay, so
fuck you.
So the internet says that it was the Battle of Lexington and Concord. I didn't know that. I did not learn a lot of American history. I grew up in Hawaii. I learned about Hawaii history, and I learned about Texas history when I lived in Texas. They did not teach us really about this. So the fact
U.S. history is a required course to graduate in the United States of America, which makes it really funny to me that they didn't teach you jack shit in either state.
Yeah, so I really don't know anything. Anyway, many of the Patriot soldiers that were wounded in this battle were taken back to the inn, which served as a hospital during the war. A portion of the inn was owned by a Dr. Timothy Minot, and when the soldiers were brought to him during the battle for treatment, he used what is now called the Liberty Room as a hospital, and then room number 24 was his operating room. So, as you would think, with the lack of technology that they had back in the day, 1700s, deaths were something that was kind of unavoidable given the circumstances.
So you're telling me that these soldiers would come in with injuries and they didn't have enough Blue Jays to peck out all the blood?
Yeah, it's just, there's no way they were going to be able to save everyone.
That's one of our least trafficked references to A Million Ways to Die.
I know. In the 1800s, parts of the inn were used as a general store and were then converted to a residence in 1850. It was cute because there was something where the guy who owned it, who turned it into the residence in 1850, he gave the deed of the building to his daughter for $10 and love. It was like the deed said like $10, love, and something else. I was like, that's so cute. I think it's sweet giving, a house like this over to someone.
It's
for
very
$10.
Sweet. It reminds me of like the what I do when I send money on like Venmo, where you can leave a note. It always says like sex and drugs, regardless of what I'm sending it for or who I'm sending it to. It's like the opposite of doing that.
Yeah. Imagine how much that building is worth right now.
A lot
Downtown
more than $10.
Concord,
that's for sure.
Yeah. Jesus. It was in 1889 that this building officially became used as a hotel, and it was renamed the Colonial Inn in the 1900s. It was purchased by a German hotelier and has gone under many renovations in the time since. So this guy takes over, makes it all nice. I've seen pictures of the hotel rooms. The rooms themselves are not like fancy modern rooms. They just look like a basic bitch room, but not even like Sheraton level or Hyatt level where it's like plush sheets and blankets and stuff. I'm not shitting on this hotel, but
you sound like you're shitting on the hotel a little bit.
The bathrooms look very, very nice. I was just looking at this inn, but definitely a room to just chill in and not spend all your time in. Come, sleep, shower, do all that stuff.
I will trade out a giant comfy bed for a soaker tub any day, because I have met very few bathtubs that can contain this.
What the?
It's always nice when I see a tub where I'm like, I can stretch out and have water up to my neck. So if they have those, we're doing it. Like, we're going.
I didn't see any, so.
Well, this hotel sucks then.
So in 1966, a newlywed couple, MP and Judith Fallens from Highland Falls, New York, stayed in room 24. If you remember, room 24 was the operating room. So they stay in room 24, located on the second floor. Expecting a probably sexy, relaxing time together. The newlyweds, right? Honeymoon phase type time. They wanted, nice, relaxing time together. They got anything but a relaxing time together, because the morning after their stay, the bride was just pale. She did not sleep. 2 weeks after they left, they sent a letter to the innkeeper. So this innkeeper receives a letter, and it's from the bride, and she claims that on the night of June 14th, she saw a ghost in the inn. And in the letter, she's like, I thought I was crazy for seeing these things, but there's no way. Like, this is what I saw. Let me tell you what I saw. There's no way I'm crazy. And so she claims that she wakes up in the middle of the night to a presence in the room she's woken up by this presence in the room. She sees a grayish figure at their bedside, not a distinct person shape, but a shadowy mass is there at their bedside. It is completely still, or remains completely still, and then slowly floats towards the foot of the bed in front of the fireplace. After a few seconds, the apparition disappears. If that happened to me on my honeymoon, man, I'm sorry, but I would be out of there. I'm like, no, I'm not
I would
staying here.
dial 0 and I'd be like, send up whoever booked me in this fucking room right now.
Send me the Ghostbusters.
I'd be freaked the fuck out.
According to the innkeeper at the time, Lauren Grimes, they thought that it may have been the spirit of Dr. Minot making his rounds. Which wouldn't be the craziest idea to me. Like,
it's
imagine,
pretty crazy that a ghost showed up and woke someone up from a
yeah,
dead sleep and
that
then
part's
disappeared.
crazy. But imagine if it's like it's his hospital room, right? His operating room. And he's so used to standing next to the operating table, the bed that the person is laying on. It just seems like one of those things where he's performing so many intense operations trying to save all these soldiers. Again, it's like a moment that ripples through time. He's standing at this operating table and it didn't move for a while because he's fucking operating on whatever, right?
So he's waking this person up to be like, hey, you alive? Did you make it through? Yeah,
I don't know, man. But it wouldn't be the craziest idea for me. So this room, obviously, has been the center of a lot of paranormal activity. But there are, of course, other areas that share a few of their own little haunts and tales of ghosts. So supposedly, there's an older woman and a tall, slim gentleman in a top hat that's been reportedly seen in the sitting room. And then there's a young girl in a bonnet that is seen walking around near the front desk. Of course, the Liberty Room, the hospital room, is also the scene of a few spirits as well. Guests have reported seeing lights flickering in their rooms, or the lights will turn on and off completely on their own. One guest woke up in the middle of the night to every light in their room on, including the TV. I hate
sleeping in the lights. Oh, I'd be so mad.
I would definitely freak out if that happened to me. Like, we never have all the lights on in a hotel room. Never. It's like, flip the lights on by the bedstand and then the one in the hall, and that's it.
As soon as I get into a hotel room, I find the only viable lights that need to be on, and then I put the AC to like 67, and I'm like, all right, cool, we're good.
So, what else is there? So I would definitely... Nope, I've already read that. Things fall off shelves on their own. Items go missing for weeks, only to turn up in random, strange places. Some guests have reported hearing whispers coming from their closet, or have seen the door to...
That's creepy as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Or coming from the closet.
Or have seen the door to a room slam shut on its own. Some have even felt as if someone were gently tucking them into bed, which is sweet. Like if it were a hospital, imagine a nurse kind of tucking you into bed.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's people that could be tucking you into bed that it wouldn't be sweet. But I just imagine the whispers coming from the closet are like, we've been trying to reach you about your
God damn it.
warranty.
Some claim to see what could be the ghost of a nurse named Rosemary, or the occasional wounded soldier who appears and disappears just as quickly. Things that creep me out that happen for sure. Whispers from right behind them, like people hearing whispers from right behind them, and then when they turn around, they see no one is there. That's creepy. One woman claims to have heard a humming in her room late one night. She wakes up to a small orb hovering by the door, causing her to hastily turn her lights on, which I would do the same. There's also, of course, the handful of amateur ghost hunters who have brought tools of the trade to capture some evidence as well. Floating orbs, strange voices have been captured, supposedly. But yeah, definitely there have been groups of ghost hunters who've come to this hotel to kind of figure out what's going on here, or at least capture some type of evidence. The inn itself has just celebrated its 300th anniversary in 2016. So 2016, this hotel turned 300 years old. That's nuts.
It's old as fuck.
So maybe all the electrical issues with the TV and the lights flickering and turning on and off, maybe because the freaking place is 300 years old. And they got some old wiring, but you never know. So, you can stay at this hotel, of course. And, rooms start at around $150 a night, so it's not crazy.
Reasonable. I mean, it's a shitty hotel, but it's reasonable.
You can get a suite for like $2 something.
That sounds fucking sweet.
Yeah. Famous writers have lived there, so there are themed rooms. So Henry David Thoreau, the guy who wrote, what is it? Civil Disobedience. He lived there for 2 years while he was going to Harvard. So there is a room themed after him. So it's called like the Thoreau Suite. But yeah, so there are people that maybe want to stay, get a glimpse of a ghost yourself, or
you almost said ghost. That's so funny.
But yeah, so that's possible if that's what you're into.
Right on. Those are some pretty haunted hotels. One of them is feasible for us to stay in, and the other one not so much. But either way, like, those are really, really good stories. Lots of haunted ghost shit in there, so it definitely lived up to the title that you gave it. Good job, Robin.
Thanks. I don't want to go there, though.
We have to.
I know there's a lot of places on the East Coast that have to be haunted as fuck because of all the Revolutionary War stuff. Like, I don't want to stay in Gettysburg. I don't want to stay in, like, all these towns that were right next to big battle areas. Like, ugh.
That's a good point. But realistically, if you stay somewhere long enough, eventually it's going to just have, like, battles near it, you know? Like looking at the flow of time, there's not a whole lot of places that you can go to that haven't had some sort of, like, battle happen near it, but who knows? But yeah, I think that's everything we have for episode 241. If you have a story that you would like to send us, it does not have to be about being a time slipper skipper or someone that stayed in a haunted hotel, although we would love to hear stories like that. It could be supernatural, paranormal, coincidental, true crime, or extraterrestrial in nature, or other. Feel free to email storytime@scaryish.com or hit us up by going to our website, scaryish.com, clicking on Contact Us and filling out that form. You can also check us out on our social medias. Twitter is @ScarishPod, Instagram is @ScarishPodcast, and Facebook is facebook.com/ScarishPodcast.
Yeah, you can just go to our website. We got links to all that stuff. We got links to Discord, Twitter, all that stuff on our website. You can just go to our website, Scaryish.com. Links to everything from there.
Robin, for folks who would like to give us the monies, honeys, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/ScarishPodcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1. I just sent out this season's stuff a week or two ago, I think. So hopefully everyone's getting their lanyards and magnets, all that fun things. And yeah, if you're not into the monthly donation, you can also go to coffeeko-fi.com/ScarishPodcast. And those are one-time donations. All of your donations go to helping us kind of keep this podcast afloat, paying for the background fees like podcast hosting, website hosting, all that fun stuff.
Indeed. It always sneaks up on me too, where I'm just like, oh shit, this is about to renew for the year. It's going to be a big hit. So everything helps. Thank you so much to so many folks. But yeah, I think that's everything we have for episode 241. So I guess, Robin, go ahead and do your thing and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.